Welcome to the Blades and Bloodlines podcast. I'm Dayna Biasi, a 7th generation barber, carrying on my family's legacy in our 3rd generation shop, a fixture in our community since 1978. This podcast is about more than cuts and trims. It's about connecting with people who have incredible stories, fascinating careers, and vital perspectives to share. Every episode encapsulates an authentic barbershop experience, a bastion of free speech, likes of which you've never seen, and flows into a meaningful conversation, one that might just change how you see the world. So pull up a chair, sharpen your mind, and join the conversation. And remember, soon you won't be able to say anything. So while you have the opportunity to say something, say something. Blades and Bloodlines, we're tapping into a little bit more of the bloodlines part of the show now, here with Sister Dayna.
Hello.
Not a nun, my sister Dayna. It's the furthest thing from it, actually. But very interesting. I feel like all of my sisters are quite unique in their own way, but Dayna and I have always been quite close. Not so much in the fact that we've, the same music, we like our tattoos, our anonymous?
Yeah.
Can you say the word? Anonymity?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. No, we are quite similar, but you're over the years have adapted a lot of traits, a lot of skills, and a lot of processes of thought that have actually, I think, rubbed off on everyone to the point where everyone, in a sense, is quite envious because out of everyone, you've been able to build a life more or less in the image of how you actually wanted it. And for an example, I mean, I'm in the business, our other sister Tegan's in the business. We're more or less trapped here. For now, trapped a bit of a bad word. We do run a successful business here, but it does consume a lot of your life. And sometimes it can be frustrating in a way to see you waltz up here in the middle of the day barefoot, just doing fuck all, saying, hey guys, can I hang out? And we're just like, okay, oh well, it is nice to have her here anyway. But Dayna, sister, you were a very bad finger sucker when you were a kid.
Yeah. Actually, so started off like that,
teeth.
and then that's what it ended up being.
Word on the street is every now and again when no one's home, you still dabble.
No, definitely don't. But I stopped sucking my finger in Year 9. The day that I got my braces off was the day that I stopped sucking my finger. And I was like, oh shit, I should probably wrap it up now.
How do you explain that to your friends? Oh, no, there's just something in my tooth.
I can control it if I want to or not. But I was, honestly, up until Year 9, I was still, when I went to sleep.
Sucking away.
Yeah, on my pinky. And I had like a bubble on my pinky.
Yeah, my son's a thumb sucker and he's got the bubble too.
Yeah.
Classic. He must have got it from you. But anyway, so tell us, just give us a brief insight. So what is it that you do? What are you involved in? What are your accolades and what's your professional background? Because you've actually done a fair bit of creative stuff.
Yeah.
We're all quite creative in our own way, but you more so in the hands-on kind of sense. A lot of people will say that barbering is creative, but it's a very kind of controlled type of creativity. You're only as creative as what your client wants from you.
Yeah, well, that's same here.
Are the same, but someone's hair and someone's kitchen and bathroom is very different. So, touch on that for us.
Yeah. Well, so I have a background in interior design.
Yeah.
So I went to like a design school in Sydney and did that, and then I was working at a kitchen company for about 4 or 5 years before I moved overseas.
Yep.
And now, since I'm back home, I am starting up my own business. So I'm doing kitchen and joinery design on my own. So starting to build that up.
What's the feeling of going out on your own and not being answerable to anyone? Did you have a lot more stability working for the kitchen company and cabinet making, or now do you feel a little bit more like, wow, if something goes wrong, there's no one I can point fingers at. It's all on me. How does that feel? Yeah,
well, it's scary. I'm lucky I'm in a position at the moment where I don't have to pay for rent. I've had a lot of savings that I didn't touch before, like Lach and I moved overseas. So I have a bit of stability in that sense, but I haven't had an income for coming up to 1 year now.
Wow.
But
you save quite diligently.
Yeah.
And we're quite lucky that the fact that our family and the family that you're very soon going to marry into has properties available that they're more than happy to give
Yeah.
up for their kids so they can be comfortable, which is a very good privilege that comes from just having families that are well set here and that have had, well, your partner, Locke, his family's been here for a long time, but they are quite successful. Just to put it into perspective, for everyone watching, Lockie is Dayna's partner and
my fiancé.
her fiance, and our families could not be any more different. Think more, everyone loves Raymond, Robert's family, and Amy's family.
Yeah.
So on one family, you've got Amy's family, who's very Puritan Christian, and you've got the very loud Italian, no table manner Catholic people. Not quite that extreme, but yeah, you kind of get the picture.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have only been here as a family really for 50, 60 years. Our family's been here, roughly, a little bit more. And in that time, we've managed to be able to accrue a lot of wealth, which has made us more or less very comfortable.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, more than you can say for others. But, you know, having that comfort should allow you to then be able to launch off, to have the capacity to be able to create something for yourself, because you don't have the stress of having to pay rents and all that kind of thing.
Of course, because a lot of people will say, you know, it's not doable. You can't just go out on your own. You can't just quit your job and do what you really want to do. So I'm very lucky in that retrospect that I have the opportunity to really, my only focus is trying to build a business. And because that was one thing from when I came back from overseas, was that I'm not working for anyone, I'm not making anyone else money, and I'm not living my life on the schedule of someone else.
Well,
it is just one thing I was putting my foot down and said no, like, this is my life, and I'm not doing anything that I do not want to do.
Well, where did it all take off for you? Because pretty much, we were there for a lot of it, but having a big family and you actually talking down and talking with your siblings or talking with your parents, you were there for a lot of it, but there's a lot you don't know. So with you, I remember towards the end of high school, you obviously went through a bit of a phase that kind of, you know, I don't know. I guess you were in a bit of a dark. You touch on it. You're the person here. What happened
at the end of school?
Well, you know, when you went off the rails. Tell us about that.
I don't really go off the rails. I think
you went off the rails.
It's really about the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, so it's all their fault.
No, not really. But you also, you know, you're just stuck in, you know, thinking who you need to be. You're not around the right crowd.
It's your normal run of the mill coming of age thing.
I feel like it's 100% normal. You look back and you can just have a laugh because it's, you know, you were just doing what was cool, what you thought, you know, you know, you think it's cool, but everyone else thinks you're a wanker.
Yeah.
But I think that's quite normal. But now, trying to step out of that, people still kind of hold it against you.
Well, it was nearly 10 years ago.
And they still think that is you.
Yeah, of
even
course,
because, so I'll give you the rundown.
Yep.
My partner and I moved to the Netherlands about, coming up to 3 years ago now.
Which, to put it into perspective, coming from our family, just to pack up and leave a nest that's very tight, is almost unheard of. You would have, you did. There's so many people telling you not to do it.
Yeah, of course. And so it was a very spur of the moment decision. We had always planned pre-COVID that we were going to go. And then of course, COVID, and because of our stand on vaccines, I kind of honestly thought that it was never going to happen. So I just, because of what the world was like, they said, you can't travel, you can't do anything. And I just had to write it off. I had to stand true with my values and be like, I can't go and get the jab.
Yep.
Because that's to allow me to go overseas. I was like...
Which in hindsight was definitely a way to entice people or coerce them in a sense to get it, because your ability to move around the world was going to be hindered as to whether you got this procedure or not. But as we saw, it all went away.
Yeah. So it was all fine. I'm glad I did stick to my decision, because there was a little bit of friction at the time between Locke and I, because he was like, are you never going to travel again? And I was like, well, for the time being, you have to stand true to your values. Like, what is really important? So obviously that mandate ended up dropping, moved overseas. It was a very quick decision. It was, I think, when we decided we were going to go, it was 10 weeks until we were quitting, packing up and moving overseas.
Well, it helps when you've got trades. Your partner your fiance has a trade, electrician.
Yeah.
So that's, once you know, you know. You had quite a quite a flexible trade too. Although were you pretty much, before you left, already knew what to do, or are you a lot better at what you do now, or has it just been the same the whole way?
In terms of my career?
Yeah, in terms of interior designing. Like, have you improved since?
Of course,
or you improve with maturity?
Yeah, you improve with, with experience and dealing with clients and kind of understanding, what is out there and all of that. So, of course, with any trade, you improve. There's never not room for improvement.
Of course. And when you got overseas, it is very interesting. What was the main reason? Well, it's just funny having to talk to you like this when I already know so many of the answers. So the main reason you obviously went over there was because you have quite a interest in hardstyle music.
Yeah.
So for the first couple of months you were there, you're raving, hacking and gabbering your way through Europe, but that kind of died off very quickly.
Yeah, so that was the catalyst for moving. A lot of people don't understand that when they kind of think you're joking. When they go, why did you move literally across to the other side of the world? Oh, for hardcore, for music festivals. That really was the reason. We had been over before, and the hardcore hardstyle music was born in the Netherlands. So it is technically a Dutch sound,
yes.
you could say.
Yes.
And since we went there the first time, we were like, we have to do this. There's an unlimited amount of festivals. Like you have one literally every weekend if you want.
They have them for free too, don't they? Don't the government put them on for free?
They do like more like street parties and stuff. Like it's much looser than it is in Australia.
Yeah. But then how then can you compare Dutch society to here? Because over there, as you said, the festivals are quite lax. Now you and I just recently went to Knotfest to see Slipknot, to see Hatebreed, to see A Day to Remember. I guess was the first in our family. Well, I've been listening to metal music since I was 13. I always did. I always loved it. You jumped on board, I think, a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I've been listening to it essentially since I was in late primary school. My love of WWE really got me into it because the theme songs just really got my motor running. And we went to Knotfest, and man, dogs, security, police, for what?
Yeah.
It's a metal festival, and they were walking around as if we had just walked into, I don't know, the hood. But then, how does that compare to a Dutch festival?
Yeah,
What's the difference?
Different. Even like they say a hardcore festival, Australia to a Dutch one, insane how different. There's not one police, literally not one police officer, and at one here you have like an entire precinct of police officers.
And the riot squad too. They were all just chilling there, all the dogs.
So it is, in a sense, it is more like it's a lot more relaxed. There's no like massive stigma around drugs because they know that everyone does it. And if you provide a safe environment,
they'll do it safely.
That they will do it safely. Whereas here, it's scare the shit out of them. So some guy eats 10 pills at once and then dies and then ruins it for everyone else because then they ban festivals, they get stricter on security and police, and then people just do silly stuff like that.
But having said that, people did overdose at these things in the Netherlands. It does happen. But
of course it does happen.
It's the tourists though, isn't it? From the countries,
because there's a lot of other drug use, like GHB and stuff, which I feel like is maybe not as so much here.
Well, I feel kind of lame that I don't know what that is. So do you want to explain what GHB is?
I don't really know either because it's something that I would never think about. I know it comes in a liquid form, and you have to you need to dose it like very, very specifically. So if you have too much, you're going to like.
Sounds like a lot of
it is
a lot of work to do in the middle of a mosh pit.
Yeah, because then people bring them in like pre-measured doses.
Dutch people are cooked, man. What the hell?
So there was this one festival, and Monday morning, this is after like a full 4-day weekend.
Yeah.
Everyone's camping, so you're in a tent, and we wake up and everyone's like, you have to move your tent because someone a few tents down was having an overdose on GHB. So he was
just going around destroying shit.
Really, I think he was going in and out of people's tents. He was really fucked up because these people don't sleep there's a lot of people that won't sleep the entire weekend.
Oh, wow.
So he's ended up passing out in someone's tent and like not waking up. So then ambulance is coming. Monday morning, our tent is in the line of where the ambulance has to get to him. So everyone's like freaking out, packing, and then you see him, they have to, because he's kind of like what's it called? He's having like involuntary like kind of
Seizures.
seizures, and
Yeah.
they're strapping him down to the
And that's this drug, because of this drug.
Yeah.
And that's very, typical of people overdosing with this?
I think so.
Okay.
And so that's like, obviously it's not a sight you want to see, because it does just put your whole life into perspective on
Well,
like, you know, you're just
yeah.
coming out of like a 4-day festival and you've done some
Oh my
things
God,
that your parents wouldn't approve of. And yeah, and then you see it and you're like, ooh.
Well, I really enjoy your comparisons of party culture here and party culture over in Europe. Now, for me personally, I've been married, I have kids and stuff. I haven't drunk pretty much since my wedding days, so I am not into it whatsoever anymore.
Yeah.
I could not care less. I'm more into just going to metal concerts, going to rock concerts, and I can easily sit there completely sober. Sometimes you crave a cigarette, but then you have to realize, no, I don't. But, you know, I'm more than happy just to sit there and just chill and rock out. So when you have the comparison, the people that would be at a hardstyle festival here, as opposed to Europe, when we went to Knotfest, everyone there was dressed up like they had chips on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Like metal music scene in Australia is for people that are downtrodden, outcasts. No one understands me. That's why I listen to Hybrid Theory, because I'm so depressed.
Yeah.
But when you go to Europe, you're just like, bro, they're just like, man, I like this music and that's it. There's no chip on the shoulder.
So much more casual. Not one person in TNs.
No.
And if you see a person in TNs, without a doubt, they're Australian. And you can pick out Australians at a festival in the Netherlands from a mile away.
From a mile away?
Because they're the only ones that dress up like
Esches.
the esches and like tight leotards, like little to no clothing. Whereas everyone else is just denim shorts and a shirt.
Yeah, they're
Like
not trying to prove
it's
nothing.
not a fashion parade. You're just going to have fun.
Yeah.
And everyone is so much more casual. They drink a lot. Where people, I feel like they don't drink at Australian festivals because it's like $15, $20
And it's
a drink.
expensive. And if they see that you're hammered when you get there, they just won't let you in.
Yeah, but it's everyone on the beers all day because they're cheap. It's cheaper than water.
But can the Europeans hold it better?
Yeah, much better. Because
Much
I feel
better?
like it's, I don't know, it's just, they're like kind of born into it. Like obviously the Europeans can drink and they can handle it well because there's not that stigma around like that you don't have to wait until you're 18. It's like you can literally start drinking at 16. You can legally buy beers at 16.
Which we're not condoning. I think drinking is kind of putrid, to be honest, especially how much it's promoted here.
Yeah, personally, because I'm not a drinker, I haven't been for a very long time. I'll occasionally have one, but I had one at Knotfest. My
that was weird.
brother-in-law
That was
gave me
weird to
one
see that,
and had to lie down after.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's why we had to go lie down because it
was a sugary one, wasn't it? Or was it a beer?
Yeah, it was like a seltzer kind of thing.
Yeah, so that you would have been sugar crashing and everything then, which you're not used to for a long time.
It really hits me super fast. Same with Locke. He doesn't drink too much. He went for beers after work the other day, had one. He didn't think he could drive home. He was so lightheaded.
Oh, I could drive home after one beer. But fuck, when you don't for ages, that's the kind of space it puts you in. But the drinking culture, I feel like here is so influenced. Well, it is from Britain. And we all know what British people are like on the continent. Can you give some experiences of some creatures you saw from the British Isles on your travels?
Especially, not even on the travels, they're sunburnt, drunk and loud. That's and you can pick, obviously because they're accents, you can pick them from a mile away. But there always are people that are just smashed and just do not care about anyone around them. But especially, of course, in the Netherlands, they're so close and always, coming for the weekend.
Well, stag parties and stuff,
Yeah,
right? They go to the red light district for like their weekend bachelor parties.
Yeah.
Or the stag parties, as they call them. And going to Europe would have been quite an experience for you. You've come back with a plethora of stories, but a lot of it comes down to the differences in food. And this is one thing that we've all seen you move into, is that you're obviously an incredible cook. But everything that you make, what can you make? Pasta, pies, pastries. You can literally make anything.
I don't find it difficult to make things, even though if I haven't made them before.
You can follow recipes.
I am an intuitive cook. Nothing really seems to faze me too much.
Yeah.
Which is, but that's the main things. I'm really good at cooking meat. Like Locke would tell you, I have mastered since we got the cast iron pans.
Nice.
I can really fry up a steak.
Well, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. First thing, starting at why would you use cast iron?
Cast iron? Well, because Teflon and all that other non-stick is poison.
Forever chemicals.
It is so bad for you. It scratches and you're eating it. It leaches into your food. Cast iron, I think you can choose from two, either stainless or cast iron. I picked cast iron.
Is ceramic similar, just quickly?
Well, that would be like enameled cast iron.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so an
Okay.
enamel, which is also fine
Yeah.
as well. So I don't know what I think, because they said that cooking steak or cooking meat is better in a cast iron. So I just went for cast iron. A lot of people do get scared of it. One, because it's super heavy.
Yeah.
And two, because it
sticks a lot.
You need to get to a point where it becomes non-stick, because they're
Right.
not. They don't. You need to season them and you have to use them.
You have to wear them in.
Yeah, you have to wear them in.
Okay.
But once I was very nervous to start using them, but now it's like just a normal pan.
Well, one of the things that I really enjoy about your cooking are the focaccias and the confectionaries, which, you know, with carnivore now I can't eat, which is a shame, but I'll get to a point where I can enjoy your food again. You're only using 5 ingredients. And so what have you seen in the with the food in the supermarkets, what's being marketed? You got Dayna's apple pie. You get apple pie from the bakery. Look at the ingredients list. Why is one 50 ingredients and why is one 4?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that's the question is why?
Yes.
Because it doesn't need to be at all. And so say that you want to make an apple pie. Most people think that making a pie crust is really hard, but it's not. So then they go to buy the one in the freezer and it has like 10 ingredients.
Yeah.
Has all these like, you know, emulsifiers, preservatives, vegetable oil. But I make it 2 ingredients. Flour and butter, and that is literally it. Maybe salt as well.
Okay, and if you wanted to mass produce it, because I think maybe that's where these companies would then begin to say, well, we have to use it because we're mass producing. All right, so but if you're mass producing your pies, it's literally just manpower.
Yeah.
So they're just cutting costs on manpower.
Of course.
But if you
maybe
wanted...
because they don't want to use so much butter because it's expensive, so they'd rather opt out for vegetable oil or whatever else they put into it.
Okay, so you could, if you wanted to make your food like really bad.
Of course you can, yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing it and giving it to Dad just for a joke, and saying that it's healthy and just loading it up with fucking vegetable oil?
That's what I always say to Lachlan. He annoys me that I'll force feed him vegetable oil if he doesn't stop.
Yuck.
But yeah, it's because it just really does open your mind, and then you have to start, I feel like in the whole kind of society at the moment, like I've been through that massive health phase, and you don't eat carbs and you're using coconut flour and buckwheat flour, but then you kind of come full circle and then you just go back to ancestral living.
Yes.
And being like, it's because when people ask me, oh, is this good for you? Is it healthy? I'm like, well, what is healthy to you? Is healthy to you lower calories but 50 ingredients that are actually super toxic to humans, or would you rather something that is flour, eggs, butter, sugar?
Yeah.
You take your pick, because there are 4 real ingredients versus 50 ingredients that are so like all chemicals, made in a lab, but it's lower in calories.
And it can drive you insane too, because as you said, butter, eggs, sugar. So you can obviously get grass-fed butter, or you can get margarine or normal butter. Like we just have normal butter here in the shop. And at home, we always use West Gold's grass-fed butter from New Zealand. It is the best one by far, and it's really tasty. But I went to have a little bit of butter here just from a normal brand, just milk solids. It was just normal butter, and immediately my stomach felt weird.
Yeah.
I think that's the big difference between grass-fed and eggs, pasture-raised, sugar. I guess if you're going to use it, organic cane sugar or maple syrup, which... And then it, as you said, it really just depends on what it is you want out of your food, because it's just it's enough to drive you insane in some regard. But then we always make the comparison when you're in Europe. I remember you told the story about where you were in Bulgaria and you went to that little hillside village and you ate there. So explain what that was like, because that to me, when I hear it, sounds so idyllic.
Yeah, so this was in Bansko. So that's like a ski village in Bulgaria. It's very well known because it's like one of the cheapest ski resorts to go to. Full of British people, as per. Great. So the main street is like kebabs, pizza, all that Western stuff.
British food.
And you're in the Balkans, like, come on, it's like meat city.
Yeah.
So we found, how we always find our restaurants, Google Maps, and you just read through the reviews, and anything really that is at least a 15-minute walk out of the city centre, that's where you're going to find the good stuff. So we find this like little family run, tavern type of thing. It was maybe a 15-20 minute walk outside of the main strip. You're in you're walking through these random streets. There's no other shops in sight. Come to this restaurant, and it was the best.
Yeah.
It was like a massive lamb shank shoulder thing.
Wow.
and these beautiful potatoes and homemade bread and salad, and it was
It's hearty food.
it was so
Winter
good. I
at
think
this
we ended
point,
up
isn't it?
maybe going 2 or 3 times, and then just went to get the same thing. And every time we came back, they're like, "Oh, you're back again!" And we're
yeah.
ordering this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, maybe too much, maybe too much." And then it comes out, and it's like a massive plate.
And this is winter, right?
Yeah.
So right now you're feeling like you could be medieval times, stopping in on
Yeah.
a travel, you know, or maybe you throw yourself into you know, maybe you're in Brie or somewhere in Middle Earth.
Because it is very
yeah.
tavern, like the timber stone.
Wow.
And you can just tell that, and because it's not very busy as well, but like you can tell it's his family and it's real food.
And they weren't in the business of trying to charge you more.
No,
they were
and
honest.
I think it would have been like 20 to 30 euros for the whole meal, including drinks and like everything.
And did you find it quite easy? Was it more of a Western setup, as in you get in there, menu on the table, or there's someone out the front going, "Please come in," or did you just kind of walk in and immediately they just swamped you and said, "Yes, come"?
No, they were very, very relaxed.
But in a good way, because
yeah.
I like that. This is, funnily enough, one of the things I hated about Italy.
Yeah.
Is that because you've travelled there extensively yourself. I've been twice in my life, back to the ancestral land, and I always found restaurants there very confusing. There's no one really at the door unless you're in the center of town.
Yeah, and that is like their main job, is to literally get people in the door.
Is to drag you in.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if you want to go somewhere authentic, you kind of have to walk in, get someone's attention. Like, I couldn't do it. And as you said, you went to the same place every time. When I was doing my Kentucky tour, I was in Rome, but I was maybe 40 minutes walk out of the center of Rome, 20 minutes by car. And the only thing around that part of Rome was more markets.
Yeah.
But because, you know, embarrassingly enough, my Italian wasn't that good, I didn't feel confident going to any of those places and buying bread and buying cold meats and maybe going back to my hotel and making a sandwich because for whatever reason, I always felt that Italians in general just genuinely sneered on you if you couldn't speak Italian.
Yeah, well, that was still like a few years ago now. Now everyone speaks English.
Well, this was only like roughly 10 years ago.
Yeah, unbelievable. Even when we were hiking through the Balkans, you're in some remote villages in literally the middle of nowhere. Perfect English.
Well, they figured out it's the language of money. If you want to be able to communicate with tourists properly, the one thing, the lingua franca they'll all have together is English. I think that's right. Lingua franca is the right word, like the common language. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But
which it makes you feel really dumb because you meet all these Europeans and they can speak like Dutch, German, Spanish, Italian, and
they learn it in school, don't they?
Yeah, well, and then it's like they can speak like 3 or 4 languages, and you're like, ooh.
I learnt Japanese in year 7 and 8.
And they go, where are you from? Oh, like, you know, my family comes from Italy. Starts rattling on in Italian, and you're like, oh, I can't. Hey, speak Italian.
I said they're from Italy, man. You know.
Yeah, which is
not born there.
It is kind of sad, but I feel like.
Well, it's up to you to learn.
100%.
I mean, you look at me with Spanish. My wife's Mexican. You've been following me. You'd know the story of how I met my missus and how, you know, she's a Spanish speaker, and to me it was a lot of. It's when you go to meet the family of someone that you're married to or that you're very close with, sitting there when everyone's speaking one language kind of puts this new feeling of degrading on you, because you're just like, man, are they talking about me? or just, what is it? Like, I have to be able to communicate. I've got so many good things to say.
Yeah.
So as soon as maybe 3 years ago when I went to Mexico, that time I came back and said to myself, I'm going to learn Spanish because I'm so sick of just going here, following my wife around and knocking her on the shoulder. Hey, what's he saying? What's he saying? And now, Matt, like, I wouldn't say I'm the best Spanish speaker, but there was an instance the other day at work where this old Chilean couple came in, and I could tell that they were Spanish, and because they just have this look. I've been around Latinos quite a lot in my life now, so I play football with lots of them. For all their shortcomings with drama and you know, they're quite 100% in everything they do, but at the end of the day, man, they're good people at heart, and they're very easy to pick. And there was an old couple, and she had her phone out, and she showed me a WhatsApp message of what her husband wanted.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, ¿tú hablas español? And she said, oh, sí. And I said, well, adelante, come in. And I sat the old man down and I said to the woman, I said, ¿Qué quieres? And she goes, just the way that the message said it. Even like, ¿Qué quieres? What do you want? She would have understood that it's not my first language. I'm sure there's a lot of nicer ways to say it. But and she said, oh, ¿tú hablas español? I said, sí, mi esposa nació en México. Me estoy aprendiendo para 2 años. Been learning for 2 years, I'd say, toda la mañana. Estoy leer, I read. Estoy leer libros. Escucho música, listen to music. And I ended up having a whole conversation with the husband. I said, ¿De dónde eres? Which is, where are you from? And he said, basically responding in English, but he would have said it in Spanish. He goes, I'm from Chile. I think he said, my kids live here. He said, how do you know Spanish? I said, my wife was born there. She's been living here for 6 years. We have 2 kids. That to me in Spanish is all very easy now, like surprisingly easy. I'm even impressed with myself with how I've been able to learn from just reading and listening. Reading, listening, talking to my mother-in-law, practicing. Practicing's such a big one. And he ended up telling me that he played for the professional club Colo Colo in the 70s.
Wow.
And it was very, very, very interesting. But I would not have had the pleasure of knowing this man unless I could speak Spanish. And the fact that he would have come here, maybe with a bit of anxiety, thinking, what if I can't communicate to the guy? And the guy in the middle of the Northern Beaches knew how to speak some Spanish. And it was just, such an amazing thing. And then now, going back to the Italian thing, when I went to Italy for the first time, and our cousins were talking to us, and they're just like, what do you mean you can't speak Italian? Didn't your parents teach you? I was like, nah, no. You don't speak any? I said, well, a little bit, but this conversation's pretty easy. But when we went out to the beach and to the parties and to the restaurants, man, and they started talking, it just froze. I just didn't know what to say. Even in the dialect, it was still difficult. It's a bit easier in dialect, but it was still quite hard. And it's funny for me now, because when we go to our grandparents' house, when I go to Nonna's house, she was still speaking Calabrese to us. Have you noticed that?
I think
that in her old age,
they're
she's
getting
starting,
old now. And then
English is becoming a bit of a pain in the ass to speak in.
They keep hassling us and being like, we've never spoken Italian. Why are you only interested now? Like, now that we're in our 20s. Like, that's what I said to Nono yesterday. I'm like, why didn't you teach us? He's like, it wasn't up to us to teach you.
Well, he did move away, which would have made it hard.
Same with Nono Louie, and I feel...
Which is our mum's father.
Yeah, our other Nono. And then even... like spending time with family in Italy,
you pick it up so quick,
but you just feel like you are missing, like you're missing one part of the connection. Same with, I feel like our other dad's parents, really good English. Mum's dad, it's a little bit difficult to the point where you feel like you can't connect, you can't fully understand each other because there is that language barrier,
which is a shame, because he does some of his best work in Calabrese, because our grandfather on our mum's side is notoriously a very funny guy, especially when he drinks. But when he doesn't drink and he's just there on his own, he's a little bit of a brick wall. But having said that, though, a lot happened in our family. I heard after our grandmother died, he did change quite a bit. So be that as it may, it's very funny. In English, he has his go-to words, doesn't he? He goes, hey, no, how are you? Oh, all right.
Or it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Or if at the end of every sentence, look, that's what it is. Which in Italian would be more like "Che posso fare," which is more like "what can I do?" So it's very, very, very funny. Whereas our grandfather Ernie, on my father's side, came here when he was quite young, and he prided himself every day on learning English. And this is the difference between our grandparents, in a sense that mum's side, Nonno was very much worked hard, loved life, drank, smoked. He pretty much lived fast. Whereas Nonno on our father's side had this void to fill in his life where he needed to prove to everyone that he was educated and that he was more than just the town he came from, which is admirable in a way. But this is an older generation and it's very different now. But Italy itself, going back to the food thing, when I was there, I found it pretty intimidating. When I stayed at our cousin's house in Syracuse, in Sicily, where he lived at the time, on the Isola di Ortigia, which is just out of the city, that you could go to a bakery, you could go to the restaurant, and it was okay. It was a very small island. They're used to tourists there. But when I was in Rome, I found myself going back to the same kebab shop every day.
Yeah.
And you know why? It's the same reason why we employ the sprucing principle here at work. Why you stand at the door saying hello to people, because he was just there. And I'm like, oh, kebab is very straightforward. I've eaten them before. And he just goes, how are you? Come in, try some. Where are you from? Could speak English.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're getting on with this guy. It was the same thing in Barcelona. I went to this one Turkish grill, just kebabs, very easy, nice homemade ones, not like in Manly. And he was then telling me how he wired up his whole shop, how he built it all himself. I think he must have come from Turkey or something. I think he did. But that was not even a quarter less of the generosity and niceties I got from the local people who just don't seem to give a fuck about you at all.
Which is kind of sad, but from, especially since like post-COVID, how busy Europe has gotten, I don't blame them. They hate tourists, they hate Americans, they hate the British, because they just don't give a shit. And I feel like for us, it's easier to be a little bit more compassionate because it is, from where your family is from, where where they originated.
They don't seem to care too much though. In Italy, just before you continue, I remember how they were very adamant, some of the people you spoke to, that you are an Australian, you're not an Italian. Don't think that you are. But growing up here in Australia, all we ever were Italians.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting contrast.
Yeah, and that's one thing Nunu always said to me when I told them that I was going to leave. He's like, why? Because I didn't move all the way to Australia for you to move back to Europe.
Europe's a very different place from 1957, I think.
Which is, and I think Italy is very different. Like the Netherlands is much more civilized, much more...
I think you mean to say it's a lot more like...
more like developed than Italy is.
Let's say efficient.
Yeah.
You go to the post office, it's going to be open. The train's going to be on time.
Yeah, definitely. I think they have it's much smaller country, a very big population, but I think it's got
a reputation in Europe, doesn't it, for being efficient? Yeah,
definitely, but a good way to get around. Like, I don't think the government is as corrupt as other countries. Like, a lot of Europeans move there because it's a great wage and like a better government, I guess.
Yeah, you get paid on time. Yeah. You'll get your super, you'll get this and you'll get that.
Yeah. Even us as an expat, we're still eligible for like health insurance supplement.
You have an Italian passport. Well, we all do. So you're an EU citizen.
But I still think anyone on a visa, you still were eligible to get government help as well.
Okay.
Which obviously the Dutch people don't like that because people can kind of easily come and be a freeloader, but good for the average citizen. It's really helpful.
Well, it seems to be a trend all over the world. Most citizens of every country kind of getting the shits that the people that are coming from foreign places are getting just as much, if not more rights than local people. Mm-hmm. But I understand that though.
Yeah.
It's a very kind of tough thing to deal with now, especially now that we have all this migration to Europe from the Middle East and Africa. And you being in Europe for 2 years, I mean, how much did that shock you? How diverse Europe is now.
Yeah, and especially the Netherlands, because they attract a lot of Turkish, a lot of Moroccans live there, a lot of people from like the Caribbean islands, so a lot of them are...
They had a few colonies there, and Indonesia too.
Yeah, a lot of Indonesians. So it's kind of, you don't expect it either. You're just like, wow. And there was like little areas close to where we would do our shopping full on Turkish. Like we would go to the Turkish bakery, go to the Turkish butcher, and it was like a full on like... similar to like Chinatown, but Turkish. So they also like have their little areas.
But did you find that they were a little bit more welcoming to you than Dutch businesses were? Or do you think not really? Or is it difficult?
Not really. Actually, a lot of them, they have a bad rap because they were the ones that are walking around. Oh, this is maybe not the older generation, but the younger ones walking around in their tracksuits. They're on Vespers in the bike lane. They're in their Volkswagen Golf speeding down in the city centre. They're actually quite a pest.
Sound a bit like the wogs here.
Which is, it is very similar actually. They think they're all eshays, but it's like they don't understand what their parents had sacrificed in order to leave their home to come here, and they're just being complete arseholes.
So maybe it really isn't a race thing as we think. Maybe it's really just coming down to this generation coming through now. I just have had it too easy.
They're just assholes. Seems like they just have this. They think they're God's gift, and you just want to backhand all of them.
Whereas the older ones are quite respectful.
I think so. Yeah.
It's really interesting. And having said that, when you were in Italy with our family, because you were there with our family, that north-south Calabria, so we got family in Calabria, we have family up near Milan. Could you comment on some of the differences you noticed between north and south? Or not particularly?
I don't think I really saw a difference. I know the ones up north could speak much, or the kids at least
Much
could
more
speak
English.
much better English, just because I've seen them twice with maybe a year and a half gap, and even in that year and a half gap their English had improved like 10 times. It was so good. But I don't think I saw too much of a difference. Maybe I didn't spend enough time.
It was your first time going back, wasn't it? Like that was like, because when I went back the first time, that was like the fabled Biasi family, the first one going back to see the family out of before our parents. I was the first one to go back. And it was massive. Like it was a really big deal, and it was really funny because I had no idea what to expect in terms of like the Italian culture. I knew from coming here was you have your own garden, you wear a gold chain, you have a cross, devoutly Catholic. And then when I went back there, literally the young kids are all just getting stoned on the beach. It was so different to what I expected. The kids there grow up a lot faster in a sense that they're all smoking and drinking earlier, but not to excess like we would here. It's all very controlled.
It's because they don't have a stigma around it, which is I think is a massive thing between probably most governments and Australia, or most societies, is that where they're so strict here to the point where you do everything in excess. But whereas overseas, it's just more, as it's more controlled. You want to have a cigarette, you have a cigarette. You want to have, a beer when you're 8 years old, just have a sip of your dad's. It's like completely normal. Or you see kids drinking super young, or like it's normal for a kid to have a glass of wine. But here it's okay to, like a 10-year-old can't have a sip of beer, but when they turn 18, they can, drink a case of beer and be plastered on
they go
in a
out
park
and binge
somewhere.
drink when they're 18. It's encouraged. It's encouraged to go out and binge.
Yeah, you're a real man. That's how you do it in Australia. And it's like,
It's terrible. Australia's lacking on so much culture. One more thing I wanted to touch just on Italy is, did you see with our family there any of the classic Italian food snobbery, or it's really not gourmet meals every day, is it? They just eat like us. Because there's so much myth around Italy about how every meal they have is just this beautiful concoction of sauces and everything. But really, most of the time when I was there, we just had pizza or just meat.
Yeah, I think
pretty
they
much.
also want to make it more like Western for you.
But this is the thing. They forget that we grew up with Italian parents that could cook very well. But the fact that they're trying is quite nice too, though.
Well, it depends, because I know that, mum's family are not, the ones up north aren't the best. I don't think she doesn't pride herself on cooking that much. But down south, Rosetta, amazing. Like, they grow their food. They're close to the beach, so they have fresh seafood.
Yes, you've got country living versus city living.
A beautiful cook. And even to see a lot of the recipes that originated so she made like the lasagna like mum does it, and like the
fettuccine like mum does it.
Melanzani like mum does it. And it was like,
she's
it's
very
so
similar
cool
to mum in a way, isn't she?
Yeah.
It's very nice that you go have all the Calabrese stuff like rispelli that nonno would make, or his wife would make, and then you go there and it's all, man, you're just like, wow, I've seen where this comes from. But our north-south divide in our family, Calabria is still, as my cousins in Calabria would say, from my dad's side, our dad's side is quite backwards still, whereas the north is very cosmopolitan, and I don't think they would have as much of a kind of a, with cooking, they don't put that much emphasis on it. But there's just one thing that really annoyed me about Italy when I went. I don't know how this maybe matches up to your experiences, but I hated the food snobbery there. I hated it how when you try and talk to some of them about the foods, it's very much like, meatballs don't go on pasta.
Oh, yeah.
This doesn't go on that. It doesn't go on pizza. And I just say, well, look, man, if I'm hungry and there's pineapple on it, I'm eating it. I really couldn't give a shit.
Yeah. And that was at, Dad's cousin. We were there, and then I think it was Alessia's father that was going, what are they doing? Because Tegan and I were putting the meatballs on the pasta, and just like, what are they doing? Like, they don't do that. And we're like, why?
Why not? Just put
Why
it on.
not?
Well,
Yeah, because it's very, I guess, well, because we don't do it here. Like, they have the different, so like your first plate, second plate, salad type thing, and where there's like
aperitivo, the main,
and where there's like dog's
everything,
breakfast on one plate. Like, let's not beat around the bush
that's
here.
how my Italian grandmother does it. She's from the same place you are. So what's the difference? And it really annoyed me because to be honest, what has Italy created now than they haven't in the past in terms of that? I feel like them as a society now, in terms of being very creative, like you look back, Renaissance, beautiful music, all the best tenors in the world, the best chefs. I don't see any of that really coming out of Italy anymore. I feel like they're still going down the mainstream shitty pop music. To me, a lot of Europe just seems to me now is that it's very simple. It's either one national dish in football. There's really nothing else.
Yeah.
Which is not fair, because there is a lot more to that in Europe, but this is just coming from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we are European, but our culture growing up really hasn't been much, except at home. And I always said, if it wasn't for those Italians that all went to America, like our whole Italian culture has survived in diaspora outside of Italy.
Yeah.
And this is where I feel like most of the world get Italian traits from. So if you talk about Italian mannerisms to someone, they'll say, oh yeah, Italian, how you doing? And I said, man, that's very New York. Do you know what I mean? I've never met anyone in Italy that's ever said, how you doing?
Yeah.
Come stai. Like it just doesn't happen, right? But they made up an image of an Italian that was so much cooler than what was in Italy. And I had the comparison that spaghettis don't go on meatball. Or meatballs don't go on spaghetti, sorry. But having said that, though, wasn't spaghetti and meatballs kind of made by Italians in servitude when they were very poor in New York, and then they made their own dish and made it their own from that community? But that's not really Italian, it's American. Well, Anzac cookies then aren't Australian. Because at the end of the day, they made Anzac cookies in the war with all the ingredients they had. That wasn't made in Australia. It was made by Australians in servitude in the war, which the same logic applied means they wouldn't be Australian. And that kind of backwards thinking is what really annoyed me with them, is that they're just very closed-minded about stuff. But at the end of the day, it is a great culture.
They are massively closed-minded. But I feel like it's all just changed now. We didn't find the really much food anywhere that good, because it's all just to appeal to the Westerners, and like you don't want that, and it's all ridiculously expensive as well. Like it's kind of, it really bums us out, like, well, Locke and I a lot in our travels, because you just think, you're like, what's happened to these places? I'm like, it's just so busy, so many people coming in and out, and it really is. Like, even though they're booming because they have so much tourism, but the actual quality and the authenticity is just not there.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of people say, oh, it depends where you go, you're only in the touristy places. But
it's all touristy now.
It is all touristy
right, so
now.
if you have to give everyone a little list of some of the off the beaten path places that you went or hiked or ate at, give us a quick rundown of what you think those places would be.
Well, I loved the Balkans, hiking through the Balkans, but even that, so like Albania, Montenegro is massive on like the tourist list now.
I was sick in Albania when I went. I didn't go out much because I was probably alcohol poisoned from being in Corfu back when I was young and still did stupid things. I'm disappointed I missed it, honestly.
But because we were hiking, we did a 9-day hike through the Balkans, so through Albania, Montenegro, and Kosovo. So you stay in like pretty much people's houses. So you're going, say you're going 1,000 meters elevation up over the pass, and then you descend about 1,000 into the valley and stay in like the little village that's there. And so they all have their gardens and they're growing, they have chickens and whatever, and they like make you, so you pay for the board and a meal. Unbelievable.
Just cheap and hearty and...
So hearty. Like, so Locke and I, we'd never have done that type of like multi-day hike. So we were expecting that we were going to be fucked. We were going to be tired. We were going to be sore, and we were going to be hungry. So you're, hiking between 15 to 25 kilometers a day. As I said, 1,000 up, 1,000 down. So it's pretty difficult. We felt amazing. We hardly ate any of we bought like Snickers and lollies because you need that. Didn't it feel like
worst case scenario?
So say for dinner they made this like beautiful, like, you know, the long capsicums in the cream, but it's all raw cream and raw milk and fresh bread and borek.
Quality ingredients.
It's, all from the garden.
Yeah.
And it's even there wasn't actually that much protein because, you know, I feel like they don't have access to
meat can be expensive there.
Yeah, so they don't have too much access to it, but the food was unbelievable. And we woke up every day feeling great. So much energy, fresh bread in the morning, eggs, as I said, raw milk. We were like so blown away because we were like, we're not going to eat a lot.
Yeah.
Like we feel like, you know, we need to have provisions on us just in case we get hungry. And we were full, we like stuffed to the gills every single night.
And you see women in those parts of the world really priding themselves on this, don't they?
Yeah.
Whereas you come back here, they pride themselves on doing fuck all in the kitchen.
Yeah, so they're like all day, they're preparing for the guests that are coming to stay, and then...
Or for their families, their husbands.
Yeah, because the whole family lives there, the grandparents, the children, and then you look, so we've finished the day, we're sitting in the garden, and like the granddad and the kids are there, and the kids are just, you know, playing around, and he's just gets the chicken, he's like has the chicken in a headlock, he's trying to make it fly. So he keeps throwing the chicken, trying to make it fly, and then he's putting the chicken, like this is the kid.
To entertain the kids.
Yeah, no, so like this is like, he was like maybe 3
Oh,
years
the kid
old.
was doing it,
The kid
okay,
was
right,
doing it, yeah. And so he was like fucking with the chicken, and then he was putting it on the swing. And I'm like, see, I'm like, this is what, and then they'll maybe go and read, but they're just playing outside all day.
No electronics, no tablets.
Yeah, exactly.
No ADD or any type of
So he's like playing with the
diagnosed...
chicken. Then another place we went to, he had this guy here. So this was in Montenegro. He was really funny. He didn't have the best English, but he's like farmer looking. He was on his tractor when we were coming in, and then he's like, hello. And he was so funny. I forget what his name is. And he was like, what's your name? It's like, oh, Dayna. And he's like, bravo, Dayna, bravo. And anytime I would say something, he would be like, bravo, Dayna, bravo. And he really like took a liking to me. And then his English wasn't the best, but enough to make, you know, to get by. And then we found out that he had a few of his siblings lived in Rotterdam, so that's where we were living.
Oh, cool.
And so then he was like rattling off. He'd obviously been there before.
He was a young guy.
No.
Older dude.
He would have been in his 40s, I think.
Yeah, right.
So he says, so they move in the summer, they go to their country house, and then they go into like a bigger city, which is like not too far. So we were walking through there. But he's like, it was just saying like this life. He goes, you don't need... You know, people, you're by yourself, you do your work, you eat your food, you raise your kids. And the kids, he had 3 boys. They all had like shaved heads because it was super hot. So the mum shaved their heads.
Awesome.
And they were like psychotic. They were like running around with the cowbell, like hitting each other. And like, obviously you could imagine 3 boys just being out to do whatever they want.
Absolutely.
But they were so cute. I'm like, see, that's what life should be. He goes like, because I look at the boys, they're crazy, but they have fun because they're not sitting in front of a TV the whole day.
And he was very aware of that kind of poison in big cities.
Yeah. So even because we couldn't, and then he was like, the food is poison. And so we're having this really nice conversation about it and how he just loves to, you know, retreat back into his little farm.
Into his roots.
Yeah.
Well, how did you then going from, and the Balkans is a great example, just quickly, and it's really blowing up. Obviously, me with the podcast now, I'm on social media a bit more than I was before, but I'm very, very stringent with the content I look at. And I'm kind of on a bit of a trend now of a lot of village life, women living in villages. There's a bit of like a traditional, what do you call it, crunchy mum kind of traditional woman kind of trend going on now, where they're trying to change the game in the sense saying it's okay to want to be a traditional woman.
Yeah.
So coming from the Balkans, which is now, I think, the last bastion of people living traditionally, strong men that provide, women that are not subservient in a sense, but know their role and their duty because it's okay to have 2 roles.
Yeah.
They complement each other, all under the all under the undying. They're very, very Christian, orthodox with those values. Even if you're not a Christian or you don't particularly like organized religion, there's no denying that the values do offer something good when they're not corrupted.
Yeah.
And then you come back here, and what do you kind of see when you look at the women here as opposed to Balkan women? But not Balkan women from here, Balkan women from the Balkans.
Yeah.
Like it's a big difference right now, and I imagine it would have stirred up a bit of, maybe feminism is a little bit of a farce.
I think so. I think, females were sold a lie, essentially. Because I guess it depends, because it's really when you go into the rural areas, that's where it's a little bit different. because they, you know, they have to maintain a house, they have to maintain a garden, they need to grow all their own vegetables and everything. So that's someone has to be there to do all of that stuff. And then when you come here and everyone's, you know, on the grind, they think that they have to be some boss lady and work all these crazy hours, which is just like, why? Why do you need to do that?
Well, because I know what everyone's going to say straight away because we can't afford it.
Yeah.
But let's just, for the sake of this argument, take price out of it. So let's say, for example, the price is out of it. Do you reckon then you would see a lot of people resorting back to traditional feminine roles if they didn't have to work? Or do you think our culture's just totally, you know, now women are just valuing power suits and money rather than saying, you know, I do want to have kids and provide for them?
Yeah, I honestly think that the tide's turning.
Yeah.
I can definitely see it in society.
What is the worst part, or what is the biggest lie you think has been sold that they've bought so easily? That why is it that they would think that having kids is a trap?
Yeah.
Whereas I would personally think, after having 2 kids myself, that it is the biggest blessing. It is so humbling in a sense to finally... It's almost like a weight off your shoulders knowing that you're finally not living for yourself anymore.
Yeah.
That you can put all your energy into your kids and whatever time you have left over is for you. But if you're raising your kids in an environment where they're, you know, when they're taking on your interests, and there is a time when you have kids where you know that, all right, I want to take Jimmy to the park today, but unfortunately I've got things to do. He has to follow me. That's being a kid. It's part of it.
Yeah.
So eventually he will get into your habits and he will enjoy spending time with you. It doesn't matter where you're going.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest lie that was sold to them, do you think? And why do you think they bought it?
Well, I think the biggest lie was saying to females that being a mother or being a stay-at-home is disempowering. That if you don't have your own income or you don't have your own, you know, story to tell, you're not that is like that it is disempowering, and that you need to be out there chasing a career, chasing a business. Yeah. Which I thought is the biggest lie, and kind of stemmed from the whole agenda of breaking down the family structure.
Yeah.
Is if you take the mums out of the home, then you're losing a massive influence of how the kids are being raised and all of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what females were told, that you need to go and work, that you should have a drive towards something, which I think is complete bullshit, because it's saying that your role as a mother or a homemaker isn't important, and that it's something that can be put on the back burner.
No.
Which is, you know, is completely bullshit, because if any stay-at-home mums would understand, even I'm not a stay-at-home mum.
You'll just stay at home.
But you know, you could say that obviously I'm working towards a business, and that is not in a feminist way at all. I'm not like, oh, I'm a boss bitch, and I'm...
Well, if you haven't got kids, you can't just stay at home twiddling your thumbs. You got to do something.
Yeah, because then the whole reason for my wanting to have my own business is because I don't want to work for someone else. I don't want to be in the matrix. I want to create, and I want to control my own life.
Yeah.
And also so that when in the next few years, if I do have kids, I'm in control of my income. If I can build up a business, hire people, I can go have my kids in peace and still be making money.
Yeah.
That is really the end goal of it. So it's not coming from like I want to be some, you know, chick in a business suit driving a Range Rover and like making lots of money. It's like, obviously I want to make lots of money, but not for that reason.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Of course
Let's just
not.
start by saying there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if you're doing that on the basis that you think that it's going to make you some kind of like, you know, that you're breaking free of the shackles of expectation and traditional expectation. Well, not really. You've just kind of shackled yourself in a different kind of modern expectation that I think has been completely manufactured by the elites that are essentially trying to control your movements and stuff. But it was interesting that you brought up something the other day when I was talking about, you know, just talking about how good our mum is as a cook and stuff and whatever. And then you said she wasn't always that good. You know, there was a time in the beginning where she had to learn it.
Yeah,
but
well, not in our lifetime, but I know from having a conversation with mum, when mum's mum died, she was like around 19.
Yeah.
She didn't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
So she said that she didn't cook, she didn't clean, and she had to get all of that from dad's mum.
Yeah.
So that's where she learned how to do everything. And that's why I find it, because you would think that someone like mum, she is a notoriously good cook, and she can maintain a house, and she's very domestic like that.
Yeah.
And she was also great at having fun with us. We always were doing fun, exciting activities, always doing something different. And you would think that she was naturally like that, but she says that she wasn't, and that's why I think it is empowering in that respect. Being like, you can learn these skills even as an adult.
Yeah.
Which I think that women are kind of told that you don't have to, and that it's difficult, but it's not difficult. It's actually really easy. You just need to find the love in it and why you have to do it.
And get rid of what it is that doesn't serve you. So, for example, before I had kids and when I was growing up, I enjoyed my video games. I still enjoy them now. But when I'm sitting there playing and I see that our son's unattended or just playing on his own, I think maybe it's time to put this away for now and come back to it at a later date. And cutting out that, like when Maria moved here, when my wife moved here, I sold my Xbox, I sold all the games, invested in a gaming laptop, which I could also use for work or for my own projects, but also be able to dabble in, because I do find a lot of peace, especially in following a campaign of a historical game, because I love history and I love to immerse myself. But even just cutting it by 75% of what I originally would do, once that want is gone, it's freed up for something more productive. So it just depends on how much of the crap in your life you want to keep in and what you're valuing. But it's funny, what we said about mum not having to have gotten there from her own volition. It just kind of brings me back to like how much we've changed as a family in terms of what we ate, how we ate, to what we do now. So just to put into perspective right now, and mum still frustrates me a little bit in the terms of that. I'll be like, all right, mum, get the cheese without the non-animal rennet.
Yeah.
And I look at the cheese, mum, it needs microbial rennet. This is non-animal rennet. Oh, I didn't have time. So you weren't working today. What do you mean you didn't have time?
No. So unfortunately with mum, sometimes I think you would give her a little bit more of a hard time. Mum does know all this stuff, but she is always on the go. She's never at home doing nothing. So she understands, but things, it's actually hard because this is why the government has you in a chokehold, because do you know how hard it is to find cheese with non-animal rennet? Literally, the only one that I can find is with animal rennet. Yeah, sorry, animal rennet is the
non-animal rennet is the bad one.
Yeah, is like the Parmigiano,
Reggiano from Italy, and you'll find that the quality from Europe is better.
So say walk into Aldi, the only one that has it is the Parmesan. I've looked at every single cheese in there, all non-animal rennet. And so the thing is, mum does understand, but she is, at the end of the day, what are you going to do? I think that's why she still has to supply everything for her household. And so for someone like me, it's easier because it's just Lach and I. And I can really, if it has it in it, I'm not buying it, as simple as that. But mum,
well, do you remember how
is trying to provide for the family at the same time. And that's, I think, where the government gets a lot of people.
Fair enough, mum. It's the government's fault, not yours.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember when we were kids, our lunch boxes? They weren't the best, were they? I remember, all right, so let's rattle off some of our all-time favorites, which I would not give my kids now. I would not even now. So let's rank them, all right? So I think the best part of this was absolutely eating out the bottom of the bag, which was JJ's and Jumpies.
Yum.
Which was the best. The salt at the end of them was good. I really liked, I'm talking early 2000s canteen. So you've got your normal paddle pops, your sun fruit, your pink sticks, which were 10 cents a stick in 2003.
I love pink sticks.
2003 and 4, they were 10 cents a stick.
I'd hate to see a school canteen now.
Oh man, forget about it. It would be the worst. That wasn't even too bad. And just the smell of a lunch order.
But you know that you don't even write it on the bag and give it. It's all, you do it all online now. So like, it's not even the novelty of like writing it out on your bag and handing it to the teacher. And like someone going to pick them up.
See, now I feel like a real old cunt now, because I remember we used to have this thing, like a little soft drink. It was like a very melodramatic lemonade.
Yeah.
It was just a sparkling water that was $1.50. And I remember thinking, fuck, in 2004, who the fuck's got $1.50? And then I remember like mum back in the day was saying, her canteen, something was 20 cents. for a dozen. She's like, but Guts, who had 20 cents? It was just, and I'm thinking it was $1.50 was so much money. And there were all of these kids, normally Filipino kids. It was weird with Filipino kids. They were always bringing like $50 to school to spend on the canteen. That was a bit of a trend.
And she always had she didn't eat much, but she always had like KFC and like all this shit that we weren't allowed.
She Filipino.
Yeah. And but she never ate it. So everyone was always like, yeah, like I get to have like, I don't know, a chocolate milkshake or something like that.
I had a friend like that, and we were really good through high school. And, but his family was great in the sense that every time you had a sleepover, it was the best of the best. It was shapes, it was TV, snacks. It was like, and I'm not saying that it was good food, but at the time when you're innocent and you're not thinking about health from that perspective, you just don't care. And their family was the best for that. And he would always bring stuff to school that he wouldn't eat, and he'd be like, "Who wants it?" I'm like, "Me." That's how I built my reactions.
Because I feel like we weren't we still ate our fair share of shit, but nowhere near as bad as other kids. We never got like Maccas.
Not really.
I feel like we rarely. I think only at our grandparents because of our cousin. She always wanted it.
We had a cousin that wanted it a lot. Yeah.
But I feel like we're never massive on Maccas. We're never on KFC or on any of like the fast food. Like we had our fair share of like burgers and chips and stuff, but from like burger shops, not from like...
Yeah, not from a fast food chain. It was from a small business. But we did have some good snacks. Like, I think a lot of Aussie kids will remember if they had big families all rushing home from school to try and see that who was going to be the first one to get the bowl of Milo as an after-school snack.
But then I remember not being that was like a very rare treat for us because Mum always said, you guys eat it all in one sitting, so I'm not going to buy it anymore. And I'm like, well, there is just 5 of us. Just buy 2 boxes, bitch. Milo was good. Remember Space Bars?
Space Bars. I used to really love... I used to actually... No, I lie. I hated roll-ups.
We never got roll-ups.
Yeah, because they were shit.
Yeah. I do remember we never... That was like... There was some stuff that we would just never... never had.
Remember 2 Fruits?
No.
Yeah, they were like those little plastic cups that had a little chopped pear and peach in them.
Yeah, and like the jelly?
Yeah, and the jelly. Then Go-Gurts, Zupa Dupas, jelly sticks.
Yum.
Used to freeze jelly sticks.
Yeah, they were good.
Jelly sticks were mad. Ovaltinis were weird. Do you remember Ovaltinis? Those coffee flavored things. They were odd. And then our school canteen was like pizza pockets.
Yum.
Sausage rolls. That was pretty good back in the day. You could get chocolate milk, strawberry milk, chocolate milk, or banana moves. And for an extra 50 cents, they'd freeze it and give you a spoon and it'd last you all lunch. These are the memories that have stuck with me so much through primary school. But the funny thing is, I would lay down my life so my kids would not eat like that.
Yeah. And I know that Mum, if she had the knowledge, wouldn't have done it. Yeah,
wouldn't have given us that food and wouldn't have vaccinated us.
And because you don't want to make her feel bad, because I know that when we talk about it sometimes, it makes her upset. But we're not coming from a place of like, you bitch, why did you do that? Like, you have full empathy that you did the best with the information you had at the time.
5 children with a full-time job.
And it's a bit hard when you have a government and, an industry that just fucking lies to you. Like, straight up is just trying to poison.
That's right.
Which is, and, they caught a lot of people off guard.
They did. And I think we are, in terms of our family's habits, we're missing the biggest culprit, and that's the Biasi line. Let me put it into perspective for the viewers out there. So my dad growing up was, let's just say, the first 20 years of his life, he probably really enjoyed his food. I'm talking big breakfast, probably a very little lunch because he worked all day, big dinner, bowl of ice cream, bag of pretzels, footies on, Luch got any biscuits? Yeah, righto.
So pretty much our dad, if you look at family photos, Mum's, had 5 kids in around 6 years.
She still looked better than Dad did.
But Dad just progressively, with each child, larger, less hair, larger, less hair, larger.
Eating for 2 was a bit opposite in our family.
Pretty much, yeah. So
Tony was eating for 5.
Yeah. And he was eating the leftovers of 5 kids as well.
Until I became of age and had to fight him for the leftovers.
Yeah, so that was pretty much... Because Dad has a notorious...
Big appetite.
You could say his toxic trait is that everything has to be empty. There is no thing as leftovers and no thing as chucking, like you not finishing your plate.
But our uncles aren't any better. Like my grandparents about 20 years ago moved up to acreage on the Central Coast. And it's still quite a backwater of Sydney up there, but the Gosford Leagues Club did have a pretty banging buffet. And when we walked in, it was gorillas in the mist. It was do not touch dessert until you have eaten twice from every station.
Yeah, and then our uncle would be the one that would take the entire pavlova from the bar.
Yeah, so he would cut a slice, leave the slice, and take the rest of the pavlova. But all we wanted to do was just go to the ice cream
Absolute
maker.
Animals.
Yeah,
I remember I always brought a
yeah.
container to bring the spring rolls home. So I would always just siphon stuff off my plate into a container to bring it home.
Animal cunts we were. But having said that, though, that's the realities of 5 children. And I think when our dad changed his habits, I remember he got diagnosed with pre-diabetes, even though he didn't look that fat. But his liver would have been fatty, his organs would have been struggling. The stress at work would have been enormous.
Yeah, and he was building houses. 5 kids.
I'm in the business now for 10 years. I understand at least a quarter of the stresses he was going through. The environment in the shop now is very different to 20 years ago. But he started working out, stopped drinking soft drink, which means we stopped drinking soft drink, changed the diet, changed the food in the house, which means, well, if mum and dad weren't buying it, then we weren't eating it. And then it all changed. And then after COVID, when we started realizing all the poison and all the basically lies of the food industry, that we became where we are now.
Yeah, and I think that we're lucky that we come from a family that is open to change.
Yeah.
So that they were able to see what was wrong in their diet and make a change, and that they're in all like recent events that they're able to take on that information, drop their pride, and drop their their preconceived ideas about something. Yeah. And they were able to admit like, hey, the government actually has been lying to us, and the government doesn't have our best interests in heart. And they were able to, drop that ego and make a change. And even if it did mean that people think that you're batshit fucking crazy and that people lose respect for you, but they're able to sit in that belief of, well, that is the right thing for myself and my family. Yeah. And they did play a massive, that whole changing their diet was quite massive, especially for me. I feel like I was always the fat one growing up.
No, because you were.
Yeah. I was pretty fat because one is I could cook.
Yeah. So
whereas maybe you guys, if it was like an ingredients household, you would be like, open the fridge, nothing to eat. And I would open the fridge, be like, oh, I can make something.
There's lots to eat, yeah.
Yeah, lots. But also I had a big appetite. And so I was telling mum the other day, used to come down to the shop after school, drop my bag off because I was had to go to soccer training, and I would go across the road and I would eat a large chips to myself and then go to training.
Who couldn't do that? I'd eat too.
But because it's hard when you genuinely love food, but you don't have a fear of
it is you're eating.
But if mum's not ordering it for me, I can't eat it.
Yeah, I used to hate ordering food myself.
Because I just had this independence to me where I just didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I was able to, but anyway, so that was seeing them go through that. And at one point it was a lot, quite forced on me. Dad didn't like that I was
big
on the larger side.
Yeah.
And I think mum had a bit more sympathy because she was anorexic when she was a kid.
She was? Oh.
So she went through a bit of a battle that she got super...
What, like purging and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, you have to talk to her about it. But so mum was always
I think I want to.
Mum was a little bit more hesitant. She didn't want to, encourage something like that for me. But then Dad was like, no, too big.
Well, when she got to her late teens and when Nonna passed away, she was herself quite plump, where you guys have a very similar body shape.
Yeah, Mum and I do exactly the same.
But it's let's be honest, it's a real good childbearing shape. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's very true. But having said all that, you've had a very good glimpse into our family. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Yeah. It was quite candid. Mm-hmm. But I also feel like even if you don't know the family intimately, you could have got a lot out of that. Mm-hmm. I hope it didn't steal your thunder too much. I feel like it was
fine. I thought we didn't touch on a lot we planned to, but I like that it was a little bit more... It was
still pretty good though, but at the end of the day, what do you think, bottom line, do you want people to get out of this conversation from your perspective? Yeah,
well... I'd like them to get out that so you can, break the mold. You don't have to conform to society. So even, picking up and moving over to the other side of the road for the simple reason of I want to go to music festivals, do it. It's like life is genuinely too short to, you know, go to school, work, and then die.
Yeah.
Like, there really is, it's so much deeper than that. And that, you know, we're made to believe that we're these, you know, we're literally born and we're just made to be like soldiers, or, you know, not even soldiers, you're made to be like
Slaves.
factory workers.
Yeah, like shift workers.
Yeah. So I think that's what I like to, I feel like, and I do inspire a lot of people that because so many people, when I said that, well, I have moved overseas or like I wanted to do that as a kid and I never got the chance. I'm so happy for you that you're doing it. And then even just that being like, so many people just brushed it off and, you know, just, I guess, well, back in the day, because everyone in their 20s got married and had kids when, you know, super early, but
back in the day, yeah. And that's, you know, starting to become a trend again now.
Yeah, but I think, you know, do actually what you want to do, question the norm and question the government as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, don't trust anyone. Do your own research and, you know, live life the way that you want to.
Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to get the best life advice from influencers or from people with massive Instagram followings, and that's what I want to instill in everyone here today. You're going to get the best advice and the best stories from everyday people, and the Northern Beaches is absolutely chock full of people like this. But Dayna, having said that though, thank you very much.
Thanks for
I'm
having
sure,
me.
I know you don't like poke your head out too much at this kind of thing, but hopefully this is what kind of sets everyone on their journey. So without further ado, mate, let's get cracking.
Yeah.
Into the kitchen. I'm hungry, make me something.
Yeah.
Boom, cut it.